All right. Well, first, I feel like we should start with some introductions. So I will first talk about what this project is mainly about. So this whole capstone project is about bridging opposition viewpoints. You know, we see so much in the media, especially with social media, how people are so much more divided more than ever. So this is the first part of a multi-episode series where we're just going to go talk to people with opposing views. So another example is we're going to do Republican versus Democrat. That might get way more spicy. We're also doing Christianity versus atheists. But our whole point here is not to decide who is right, because at the end of the day, we are arguing. So it's like, you know, you're never going to really change your beliefs in one day. But what we're hoping for today is just to find some sort of common ground and just be able to see the other side, because we believe that is the start of bridging some sort of opposing viewpoint. So, and Sir Professor, we'll start with you. You are...
So my name is Brad Moser. This is my 4th year teaching here at Columbus State University. I teach physics and astronomy, but I've been teaching in the university level for, I think this is my 16th year now, after doing some PhD research, blasting molecules with lasers, rearranging energy levels, sort of. That's my fun way of putting it, but it was mostly sitting in a basement for about 5 years in the dark, being kept away from normal people. So it's nice to be out and about.
You know, I had an experience with that during COVID, where I sat in my basement too and played video games a lot. So we can kind of relate.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But you know, as a business major, I can't wrap my head around the molecules. I'll rather stick to like my coloring books for homework and stuff. But let's move it on over to Mark. Mark, we actually were first introduced to you in a Netflix documentary, and from there we understand that this you're believing in flat Earth started around, I'd say 2014, 15. Around there?
Yeah. Summer of 2014. That's when I looked into it. I looked into just about every conspiracy you could think of. Thought that flat Earth was ridiculous, so I made sure I looked at that last. And I was conspiracy bored. Looked at flat Earth. It's like, okay, I can knock this thing out in a weekend. Because there are a bunch of conspiracies I don't like. You know, some I've looked at them all. Some I don't like. Some I don't like. You know, JFK, lone gunman that was then killed by a lone gunman. Yeah, probably there's something there. Is Bigfoot having Elvis's baby? No, probably not. So when I got, and that lets you know how far flat Earth was on my list. And then when I was looking into it, I was leaning on the space programs, not so much mainstream science as much as the space programs, and hammered on it for a weekend. And then that weekend turned into some months. And then finally 9 months later in 2015, I said, okay, I can't solve this anymore. I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. So I made a series of videos, put it on the internet, say, hey, internet hive mind, tell me where I screwed up. Nobody called me and said, and I put out my phone number. Smart thing to do, by the way, put all your contact information on the internet, which is how you guys got a hold of me so quick.
Yeah, well, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's smart. Put your phone number and your address and your full name and everything else. And then nobody called. In fact, it was the opposite. All sorts of different people were calling me from different walks of life and military people and saying, yeah, it's not that nuts. And then it snowballed and turned into the Netflix thing, and that turned into other things. And now we're just doing our thing. That was 11 years ago. The Flat Earth Clues, which the Netflix thing was based off of, was 11 years ago in February. There we are.
Yeah, so honestly, a lot of my questions are meant for like both sides to answer, but the one question I really wanted to ask you initially right away as soon as I heard about this was like the other conspiracy theories you believe, because I'm a huge conspiracy theorist, like, and I need to dive deep a bit more into flat Earth, but I have dived deep into others. You know, there's such things, the JFK, 9/11, yada yada. So I was just wondering, like, was flat Earth the only some sort of conspiracy theory you believe, or
no,
really JFK
but
as well?
And I got to be careful here, because if you're going to be presenting this at school, there's some conspiracies you're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah, a little taboo. I can keep some stuff
it's not, which is funny in itself. You know, like 9/11. You know, we're not really supposed to talk about that much, even though I think there's something fishy there. Yeah, of course I do. Just from an engineering standpoint, I got a bunch of engineering friends that just like shaking their heads, going, nope, not going to happen. Other conspiracies, there's too many to talk about. But what I try to say is this: I put myself on the other side of the board, which is, okay, if because I look at the greater good. If a conspiracy, everyone thinks that conspiracies are all, sinister, and they're done, by evil people that, wear black hats and twirl handlebar mustaches. But I disagree. I think most of them are done for what they consider to be the greater good reason, be it an empire or money or power or whatever. And if you want to say that's evil, that's fine. But generally, it's done for a greater group. I get an example for you. I'll give you a conspiracy that nobody ever talks about. Totally exclusive on my part. Here's the very definition of a conspiracy, really fast, which is the Panama Canal. That's a monstrous conspiracy. No one ever talks about it. No one's going to talk about it, but I talk about it every once in a while. Why? So like take like major engineering projects in the world, like the Hoover Dam. When the Hoover Dam was built, I think they lost maybe 30-something people, if I'm not mistaken, from, trucks falling over and people falling and stuff like that. Construction accidents, they do happen. Do you know how many people died during the building of the Panama Canal? And we're talking, the Panama Canal is basically just a giant ditch. No one was falling off of anything. Better part of 6,000 people died. Men died during the making of the Panama Canal. And you're saying, wow, that's pretty good. This is a pretty high number. And I go, and then you say, well, what'd they die of? And the second I give you this answer, your knee-jerk reaction is going to be, well, of course, that's just what happens, because most of them died from malaria and yellow fever. Right? That's what happens when you're in the jungle, right? And then I say, well, we knew they were going to die, though. There's the difference. And you say, no, you didn't. It's like, oh, yes, we did know, because we didn't start the Panama Canal. The French did. The French did a number of years before, and they lost so many guys that they just basically put down their shovels and said, okay, we're going back to France. They lost over 20,000 men, to where the city was protesting because all these mothers are like, why aren't the guys coming home? Why are there so many? So the conspiracy, and you say, what's the conspiracy? My conspiracy is this. I think the United States was fully prepared to lose up to 10,000 men. Civilians, mind you. This wasn't military. Civilians to do this. The conspiracy is that you don't tell them that there's a high degree of possibility that one of your buddies that's going with you it was like a 1 in 8 chance you were going to die down there. They didn't tell them that. They just said, oh, hey, go. If you make it back, some good money in it for you, good experience, and blah, blah, blah. That, by definition, is a conspiracy. They hid the dangers, be it, it wasn't illegal what they did, but it was unethical. And that right there is a conspiracy, and that's just one of many that are out there. And if the United States is willing to do that, they're willing to sacrifice 10,000 men for a military and economic choke point, then we're willing to do that for all sorts of fun reasons. And that's just one conspiracy. The others, we can get them down the road, but that's the one I just want to throw out there, because nobody knows about it.
Yeah, I think that's really important in terms of like establishing some sort of perspective when we dive into other things. Is like, because one of the assignments we did in class was about disproving conspiracy theories, and one of them, we went on a website, and one of the biggest oppositions to any conspiracy theory is, why would they? In terms of 9/11, like, why would they sacrifice their own people?
Think of it like this. I'll do in one sentence, which is, do the ends justify the horrible means? And horrible is a subjective term. Do the ends justify the means? Whatever it is. Would you sacrifice 10,000 men to build the Panama Canal? Would you sacrifice 200 men for the Alamo and get a massive amount of real estate, trillions of dollars in adjusted real estate? New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and that worthless piece of California. Would you sacrifice? Of course. You don't ever tell me. It's one of the most naive things about the conspiracy world. And I'm talking to conspiracy people when I say this. Don't ever think that you can't put a price on human life. Happens all the time. And that's what I kind of lead in with. So there you go. It happens.
All right. So for the first question, we want to establish some sort of perspective. That's the first pillar, I guess. And it's really hot.
Yeah.
But first question. So for both of you guys, I'll let our guests, Mark, go for your guest as well. I'll let our online guest go first. So what first led you to your current beliefs about the shape of the Earth?
You mean my current
yes,
position of the shape of the Earth? Oh, that, again, conspiracy boredom. That's all it was. I looked into it, and I thought, well, in fact, I was a huge globe. I collected antique globes. I started in a negative position. I had world maps and framed all over the house. And I really honestly believed that flat Earth was one of the dumbest things. Everybody knows that. It's the dumbest thing ever, right? But the question is, why do you think it's dumb? In fact, I'll give you a great little example. George Orwell, wrote 1984. He had this wonderful quote in 1946. He said, if you went out on the street and asked anyone how they know the Earth is a globe, And he wasn't a flat earther, but he was talking about why people believe, no offense to Brad here, why people believe science, no matter what. So if you ask anyone on the street how they know the world is a globe, they say, well, we know. It's known. It's a given, right? Like, and he goes, really? How do you know? He said, when you press them on it, that's when the gears start grinding and they get kind of agitated, because they realize it's not that they know, they were told. And there's a big difference there. When I got into the flat earth, I realized that most people don't consider themselves very intelligent at all. And so they will defer to, for lack of a better term, the people in the lab coats, the guys in the lab coats. And I've watched it happen. I have seen it on the street, which is you can take the average person in any street corner. I don't know, any big city, you've seen people handing out flyers on the street corner. Tough to give out flyers. You take that same person, you put a lab coat and an empty clipboard in their hand, they just have to stand there. They don't even have to say anything. People will just walk up to them. It's like, hey, intelligent man with clipboard, what are you doing? And they just defer their belief system to them. And so when I got into this, I realized leaning on NASA, leaning on the space programs, and then it's like, okay, NASA, you'll be able to save me. You'll be able to get me out of this. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized I was just pulling on more and more empty threads, to where at the end it's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't solve this problem. So that's when I deferred to the internet and I said, okay, help me out. Tell me where I went wrong. And they couldn't. In fact, it was the opposite. 90% of the people that were contacting me were saying, no, you're not nuts. Here's why. And they would just start tacking on little things. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop for like 6 months, never dropped. To where once I got all my subject matter list, the subject matter experts, I was like, okay, we're going to go with that. And so I immediately just hit the accelerator and went to that. So it was basically trying to prove the globe using the space program as a baseline and coming up short. That's where it happened for me.
Move on to your perspective, and I feel like it's vastly different, so I want to start with why does
Brad believe in the globe? Okay.
I've always been a curious person in the sciences, but I can't say that I grew up thinking any differently about there being a round Earth, because it was just, as Mark would put it, it's the information that's given to you. So it's coming from the so-called lab coats. So I can believe it. But as I get deeper and deeper into my studies of physics and astronomy, I begin to see the rich background, the hundreds of years of the experiments that have been done, of the theories that have been generated, the mathematics that have been created over the span of centuries, and the changes. The model of a celestial dome is one that was probably followed for a very, very long time. The church agreed with that view, and as new views came about, it really started to kind of push against what the church had in mind. I don't think the church had anything to do with developing that idea, but it kind of fit with the biblical story. So as the mathematicians and astronomers of the 15 and 16 and 1700s start coming up with these their ideas, their mathematics, and beginning to show a new model of the way that things can work, change began to happen rapidly. With Newton coming up with mathematical laws to try to describe the motion of things in the heavens. The premise was that you have these big round objects in a big space that can attract each other, that these things can orbit around each other. Galileo sees the moons of Jupiter, and looking at a telescope, it just looks like these objects moving back and forth. And how do you describe that? Well, if you're able to describe it as actually circles going around in a bigger circle, all of a sudden pieces start to come together. It becomes a model that's consistent, it makes sense, and it allows predictive power. So you begin to apply that model to other things. You say, okay, will this help us predict other things in our solar system? You start to see strange motions that aren't quite predicted, and you say, it looks like there's maybe another giant round object out there that's tugging on these things. And then they find Uranus, and then they find Neptune. And we begin to understand these other things. Eventually, the mathematics leads us to being able to fly to space, to be able to send astronauts to the moon, to be able to send people in orbit around the Earth, to send probes to other planets, to other moons, and be able to look at that. So just the rich history of these models that have been built. And when we talk honestly about science will never be able to fully describe truth with a capital T. The best we're doing really is modeling things to the best of our understanding. Even Newton's laws were found to be not a complete and full picture. Einstein comes around 100 years ago, and he's able to synthesize a new mathematical picture that says, well, actually, there's a space-time and it's warped, and things are going around in this warped space-time. So it's a very different model, but it has still built on some of the previous models. So I guess this is where my history of getting deeper and deeper into the mathematics and the ideas and really studying these has shown me this consistent picture that thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even upwards of millions of scientists and researchers have been able to use this consistent picture and make predictions that have allowed not just the space travel that we have, but in understanding the microscopic world and being able to create the transistor, which leads to computers and all of the technology that we have today. So that's this bigger picture when it's just so broad. And the average scientist, I don't trust the government either. If we want to do a debate on 9/11, it's like I don't have any knowledge. I don't have any information. I haven't looked into it myself, and I'd be willing to believe either side given the right looking into it. But I have spent a long career, not that long of a career, but a career in the sciences and digging into the mathematics and seeing how these models have been built up, and I feel like I have an understanding of where this picture comes from that would support a round Earth.
All right, and with that being said, Mark, do you have any regards to say towards what Dr. Moser just kind of briefly talked about?
That was well put. well said. No, seriously, as far as breakdowns I have heard over the years, that's about as good as they come. And I would expect nothing less from the modern astronomy science programs of our time. No, it's great. Seriously, I wouldn't. Everything you said was well thought out and well placed. Of course, I disagree, but for different reasons. And no, it was great. No, I didn't. There were a couple points maybe I wanted to interrupt, but then again, it's like I've been doing this for 11 years, so I want to let you go. No, it was great. No, I'm not going to argue. No, Brad seems like a nice guy. I'm not going to come at him. Seems great.
We'll be able to get into more of maybe if those points of disagreement later. With that being said, Sebastian's going to ask that follow-up question, diving deeper in.
All right. So, just to follow up, are there experiments or observations that you think clearly support your view?
Me?
Yeah, we'll start with you.
Okay, yeah. The biggest one, real quick, for some transparency, how the tipping point for me for getting into flat Earth wasn't actually a scientific observation. What most people get into it because of long distance photography, plain and simple. I got into it. The thing that did, long distance photography is fine and that's great, everything. But for me, it was the Antarctic Treaty. Look into it if you get a chance. The Antarctic Treaty, which was set up.
I do understand. Yeah, there's a big reason why it's only available to scientists and if you were a regular civilian, you cannot, be able to.
Yeah, you
explore
can't.
It freely, and it's very guarded. Yeah, I understand.
Yep, no corporation can set up anything in Antarctica forever. And in fact, it's funny because it's up for review in 2041, which doesn't seem that long from now. But remember, it was written in 1959. That is a huge span of time between that and that. But for me, we'll just go with long distance photography, because that's what a lot of members in our community like to do. Is they like to go out to the beaches and start grabbing whatever digital camera and start firing off in the distance. And one of the reasons we're even talking right now is because 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago, the technology for cameras just didn't exist. Yes, there was a lot of things that were supposed to be in our future which didn't happen, flying cars, actual robot servants, don't get me into that, and so on, laser guns, actual phases, forget all that noise. But digital technology and media technology has really come a long ways. And digital technology, as far as cameras, especially with digital zoom, has allowed us to pull things into frame which shouldn't be there. So 20 something years ago, you couldn't, if the boat went off over the horizon, so to speak, you would not be able to, whatever, I don't care how much money you had on your shoulder on your camera, you couldn't pull it back into frame. Now you can buy something for less than $500 and you can pull something back into frame that's way, 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 way out there. And if as long as it's a calm day, as long as the waves that are really, really close aren't, creating too much variance, as long as it's a nice clear day, it's the only limit, it seems, to our long distance photography is the atmosphere itself, the thickness of the atmosphere. Because remember, what we're breathing in here is only 99% transparent, and it compounds over distance. So the big experiment for me, the one I like to point out, and the video has been spread far and wide, it's on my channel, would be the Black Swan experiment, which is, if you've ever been to California, a lot of people don't know, there's oil rigs not even 10 miles offshore. They've been oil rigging the coast of California, and there's layers of them. And there was this one you can line up from Santa Barbara where there's an oil rig at 6 miles and one at 10 miles. And if you line the two up, you can, with a camera, you can see pretty far. The question is, at 6 and 10 miles, the curvature of the Earth, if the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile, or 8 inches per mile squared, there should be some blocking. And we're not going to take into account refraction for this because I want to get the point across, which is there should be some part of those oil rigs, either at 6 or 10, should be blocked by the curvature of the Earth. And it's not. And as a matter of fact, not only do you see these oil rigs absolutely, completely, from the water up, both of them, no variance in between except for, size distance. But you see the horizon behind both of them way, way, way in the background. So the question is, where's the curvature of the Earth happening? Because it's not in front of the oil rigs, it's not in between the oil rigs, and it's not happening behind the oil rigs unless you count that line way, way off in the distance. It's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me a ship is being cut off from the hull up, and yet both those oil rigs and the horizon behind it are absolutely perfectly clear in view. You can't. So, and I even had somebody come at me, granted he wasn't a physicist, but he actually said, well, no, what you're looking at is a complete mirage and the actual horizon is invisible. Straight up answer. It's like, okay, even if that was true, and you're going to have a hard time proving that, the general public's not going to buy it anyway, because you can't just say something's invisible. It's just not there. That means like, this is where I take a little dig at you, Brad. That'd be like talking, about dark matter and saying that the dark matter is a thing that solves all problems. And it's like, yeah, and we've got people, and I'm sure you've got friends that have been working on dark matter for a long, long time. I don't know if you're going to be solving it anytime soon, but then again, like you said, science is working, especially when it comes to space. Science is still working on a lot of things. They don't know. The Einstein Newton quote was perfect, which is, oh yeah, everything was great. Last part of this. The thing that I've always didn't irk me about science, because I know it's what science does, is when they make a change, they don't really apologize for it. They just pivot to it. And it's like, this is absolutely the truth until now. And now this is absolutely the truth. And it's like, yeah, but what about that, where you're beating everybody over the head with it? And sorry, I'm going to throw one more little thing to the mix. I know I ramble, which is cryptozoology. Is such a great example of that. The coelacanth fish, You guys have heard of it. The famous fish was been fossilized for 70 million years. Absolutely extinct for 70 million years. No question. Every scientist on the planet, notice what I said there, on the planet actually said that it's like they would have bet the farm that fish was extinct. And then they caught one off of South Africa in 1940, the British Navy. And the scientists were like, nope, can't happen. It's like then they caught one off of Madagascar and Mozambique. Pretty soon they figured out they're just swimming all over Africa. And National Geographic did a special with them to where, and then they were backpedaling and saying, well, it's in an evolutionary state of stasis and it's a living fossil, just making up new terms for this. And it was like, so you're just not going to admit that you were straight up wrong. And the last part of this is because
like
scientists. The what?
Sister sounds like my ex-girlfriend.
Well, there you go. The follow-up to that is, and you say, well, unless it's on your lab table, you're not going to believe it. It's like, well, you could say that, but then you got the platypus. And there are wonderful stories out there when the platypus was actually taken to the lab table and they're staring at it going, nope, not buying it. It's like, what do you mean? It's right there moving around in front of you, making squeaking noises. It's like, nope, it had to have been cobbled together, surgically altered with other animals. And so science, I know that they're the opposite of making leaps of faith. And that's really what's going to come down to here is I make leaps of faith all the time. Science can't really, which is just part of who they are. There you go. That's it. That's my rant.
Yes, moving on to you, Professor.
Yeah. Do I mind if I respond to some of the things in there? Yeah.
So, the world is your oyster.
I want to say a couple things, and then I want to get to the oil rigs because I feel like there's something good there. So I can't vouch for scientists being great at PR, and PR people cannot be vouched for being good at describing science. What I see happening all the time is that scientists, when like, first of all, they don't announce their results very often. They're a little too quiet, and they try to be humble despite having very large egos many times. And then when they finally put it out there, they're not great at describing it. And then the news corporations, which want to talk about conspiracy. I don't even know if this is conspiracy, but there's certainly, news corporations know that certain things sell. So they're going to take a story and, not having been in the research lab to understand it themselves, to see the years of development, are going to take it and say, chocolate cures cancer. That's what, there was one line in the paper that said, chocolate could theoretically cure cancer in the future once we do a lot more research. And they're going to say, they said chocolate cures cancer. It's all over the news. Right. And all of a sudden that becomes the story. And this is where I have a real hard time with trusting, everything the way that news stories present them, and certainly with a lot of the information on the internet. And this is where so much conversation has to be had. It's like people just need to be talking back and forth because there's so many different ways of understanding things, and people have different ways of communicating. So it can be very challenging for everybody to interpret each other. That's my hope as an educator, to be able to try to help, go be the middleman from, here's how I've learned things from researchers that I didn't do that research, but I've seen the connections over the many years. How can I teach those? But the thing I actually got really excited about. So, you proposed basically a hypothesis. You said that there's these oil rigs that are 6 miles out, they're 10 miles out, and we should expect with the curvature of the Earth that we should begin to see them disappearing below the horizon. And why don't we see that? Well, there seems to be a data set that suggests this isn't, this hasn't been the case. And the experimentalist in me says immediately, well, let's go do this experiment. It's like, I'm going to be open to this hypothesis because that's what good science should be. It should allow hypothesis to come to the table and say, all right, let's try to find evidence for this. Because, this is what science is trying to do. There's different ways of knowing things. There's philosophy as a way of knowing things. There's religion as a way of knowing things. And science as a way of knowing things is based on trying to do experiments that are repeatable by many, many people, that we can then often apply mathematical ideas to and see if we can all come to that same conclusion. So I would want to say, I want to do this experiment. I want to get, it could be oil rigs, but it could just be boats. get 50 boats, all exactly the same height, and just go 1 mile. Park one boat 1 mile out, another boat 2 miles out, another boat 3 miles out. Get everybody out there, everybody with their cameras, so that we don't have the conspiracy of, well, the flat Earth people, they use cameras that do this. Well, the round Earth people, they got cameras that did that, because that's going to be all over the place.
Right.
So we need everybody agreeing that, okay, we're going to agree on the cameras that we use are functioning as regular cameras, and we're going to do this experiment, and we're going to repeat it, and we're going to see what is the evidence that we get from that. I would love to do that experiment to see what the result is. I think I know what I see, what I'm going to see. You think you know what you're going to see. How do we know? We try it.
Right.
So that's what I would offer.
Yep. And by the way, I want to chime in on the media thing you mentioned, because two things came to mind. One was you were talking about what sells with the media, and I was thinking of the Red Bull jump, because that was hyped up to no end, where it was massive. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of only 3 media scientists in the world, which just blows me away. It's like, really, you only go to 3 guys ever? Neil Tyson.
There's a big ego, unfortunately.
Huge,
So
massive.
Bill Nye, right?
Well, no, not even Bill Nye. He's like a distant fourth. Neil Tyson from the States, Brian Cox, who's even got a bigger ego, from the UK, and then Michio Kaku from Japan. Well, Japan American. And Bill Nye, don't get me started on that man, because I live in up in the Seattle area, and he started out as a local comedian in the Seattle area for Seattle Comedy Troupe, and I watched him transition over. And when Disney picked him up, I was like, oh no, let's not do that. But what I want to mention was the Red Bull jump. Neil Tyson was not shy. Thank God that man actually, he did us more favors than anything, where he called the Red Bull jump dishonest. Because look, he goes, it was severe fisheye lens when he's only 20 to 30 miles up, and he goes, you can't see the curvature from that altitude, which I thought was interesting anyway. But I talked to producers. One of them was tied to the Red Bull thing, and I go, why did you use that frickin' image? He goes, that's a good shot, isn't it? And I go, yeah, but it's not right. He goes, I goes, a fisheye lens, and he goes, it's a good shot. It's the better shot. Why would we use a flat horizon when it makes him look like he's jumping from the edge of space? And I go, I can't argue with that, because why not? And to that effect, one more, which would be, this guy probably better than me. The Harvard professor, all he had to do, like the one line of chocolate, all that guy said was, hey, that asteroid that's coming through our solar system could be an alien ship. And man,
yeah, that guy.
And what do you think? What do you think happened? How many interviews did he get? Why? Because he was from Harvard and he said it. And then what do you think he was going to do? If he was one of those guys who was shying away from it. No, he doubled and tripled down. He's like, oh yeah, absolutely, possibly, it could maybe be an alien ship. And he milked that thing for months, absolutely, to where our forums, I couldn't get away from it. I because I track some of the forums, that headline was popping up in there all the time, because the conspiracy people was like, it's coming, the invasion's coming, because of one guy that said that. So yeah, it's tricky on both sides, but your reaction said it all. It's just that guy. He didn't do you any favors.
I'm actually really happy you shared the Red Bull one, because I actually do this as a physics question, where I haven't worried about the whether or not you can see the curvature of the Earth. So it was really interesting to hear, and I can believe that they would want to take a shot that would sell better. So I've done this as a physics problem, just where how fast would he be going? How fast is he falling when there's no air drag, and then eventually re-enters the atmosphere? How fast are you falling at that point? And seeing the data that came from that. So I've been interested in that. But in thinking about that, so Plymouth State University, we have a meteorology department, and they send weather balloons up into the sky. I have seen footage. I think I've seen. Okay, I don't want to vouch for this, but I feel like they send cameras up, and again, as a scientist, I want to be able to do the experiment. I want to say, what? If we can get weather balloons to go up into the sky with a camera, and again, we get everybody to agree. It's like, let's get a camera that doesn't have a fisheye lens, that has normal lenses that can really see what's going on, and we send that balloon up, And do we need maybe some airplanes up in the sky to make sure it's really that balloon that's still going? Like, find some ways to get some evidence that it's really this balloon that keeps going higher and higher. Is there a point where we expect to start seeing the curvature of the Earth based on the mathematics that would allow us to predict that? And then see, it's like, do we start to see that curvature there, and how much higher can we go to see that curvature? So that's something where, I immediately, if the experiment hasn't already been done, I would want to see that happen so that I could see for myself, because
go ahead.
I want to see the evidence too.
Yeah, I agree. And what's frustrating for me is because, again, most people aren't you're in the top bracket of intellectual. Is that even though people, even though Neil Tyson will say, yeah, Red Bull from 130,000 can't see the curvature, right? Which I've loved throwing at people, because I can't tell you the amount of people that have said, I've seen the curvature from an airplane at 30,000 feet or 25,000 or 28,000. I've had people that said they've seen it from the top of a mountain. I've said people that they've seen it from a normal balloon. And then I'll send them the clip of Neil Tyson saying, you don't see the curvature. Guy's got great stage presence, I'll give you that. His delivery is awesome. I mean, it's unfortunate or fortunate, depending on how you look at it, that he's in physics. He could have done anything. Could have done public speaking, could have done self-help books, whatever. His stage presence is great. But the fact, when I tell people, when Neil Tyson, your guy, says you can't see it from 130,000 feet, but you swear that you can see it from an airplane, who's right? And then I started realizing it kind of came into the whole George Orwell-y 5 lights, 4 lights thing, which is, it's not that they want to see it's not that they see the curvature from the airplane. They want to see the curvature from the airplane. Mm-hmm. And I put a challenge out for years where all I did was I said, okay, fine. You think you see the curvature, take a picture with your phone right then and there. Then when you get home, put it on a laptop, put a straight edge up to it. Tell me if that curvature is still there. And if it is, draw a line on it, send it to me. Send me the email. Nobody sent me nothing, because why would you see the curvature? But again, they expected to see it. And hell, I've had people from the beach said they say the curvature. Like, how in the world could you possibly see it horizontally from the beach? It's like, no, in their head, that's what they did. But again, people are funny. Well, it kind of goes into the George Orwell quote really quick, which is, I don't think I finished it, which was George Orwell, when he was asking people on the street how'd they know the world was a globe in 1946, right? How did everybody in the street know it was a globe in 46? NASA wasn't even founded until 1958. How did you know? Right? The NASA, there were no space programs, unless you want to count the whole German thing, which is a whole another deal. How did you know? I mean, NASA wasn't even releasing stuff. But I don't get it. I could spend way too much on NASA. Hashtag Artemis today. But go ahead. By the way, I predicted it. I said there was a 75% chance they were going to kick it down the road, even though it's America 250. I said, go for it. Fake it with AI if you have to. Just go for it. No one's going to care. Just do it. And they didn't. They say, oh, fuel leak, and we're done for the year. And maybe next year. It's like, okay, fine.
Fake it with AI is going to make all of it harder for you and me as we try to share our views, because everybody can invent their own views with AI now. So it's going to get really tough. Figure out truth from fiction.
You and I absolutely agree on that. I come from the tech sector, and AI, when it started really rolling last year, I made a couple videos on it, and I was telling people, I go, I know it's cliche to say the whole cooked, it's over thing, but mainstream media is in real trouble. And I watched it. Sorry, one last thing I want to chime in before we get to whatever questions you guys have. Which is, I knew what was going to happen, and then not even 5 months later, you can look it up if you want, McDonald's released a commercial for Christmas called "The Most Terrible Time of the Year." It was all AI from start to finish, and it was like playing up the song, "It's the most terrible time," and it showed all the Christmas accidents you could possibly have during Christmas, from falling off of roofs and sleigh accidents and skiing accidents, everything in the snow. And it's like, you know what, you should just skip all the holidays and hang out at McDonald's until it's over, right? And they spent something that would have cost millions of dollars to make. I mean, there was some high-end stuff in here, cost maybe in credits, if you guys know how AI works, maybe $1,000 in credits. In fact, they probably paid more for I know they paid more for the marketing team and everything else behind it. But the actual processing, not even $1,000 worth of actual AI processing to make this thing. I mean, I don't even think they ran that many versions of it. So yeah, we're in a place now where yes, AI is going to make things. Well, come on, we're kind of even seeing. The fact that people are jumping on. I don't. One last thing there, which is the fact that people are. This current events are making fake AI war clips now, not even 2 weeks in. It's like, wow, not only is that in bad taste, but it's like that's completely confusing because they're good. They're really, really good. And basically, so if I tell people, I go, if it's 8 seconds or less, don't trust it. Just don't. There's no point even looking at it if it's 8 seconds or less, which is tough because there's lots of people that post stuff that are. God help us if they ever raise that limit to 15 seconds or 30 seconds, then we're really in trouble. So, anyway, what else you got?
Take it away.
Was there any experiments or observations that talk about to support your view? Well, I mean, to be honest, let's face it. This is our, in a sense, the whole thing about the Earth being societal understanding. So, do you want to speak on it at all? Or?
I know the evidence. Mark's heard the evidence. I don't think that's actually the interesting part here. I think there's more interesting questions to look at. And I'm curious if you asked some of that. I wrote a couple of questions down. Mark, I have to say, I'm sorry, I did not know who you were before today.
Oh no, that's fine.
I
good.
And you didn't know who I am, so that's okay too.
Perfect.
So I knocked my microphone off. But as soon as I was given a name, I thought, I'm up against a pro here. So I had to do a little research, and I watched part of the documentary this afternoon when I was supposed to be grading some exams. So I apologize. Not your class. Yours are done. Actually, yours class is tomorrow. So I started looking up. What are the key talking points? And you already know the key talking points, and you have arguments to make for them. And I've read some of those arguments, so it's like we almost don't have to rehash that. So I'm curious, that's just it's like why I'm curious. What are some other questions you might have that can help sort of further this conversation, where maybe it's not about the evidence piece, but what's the bigger picture that we're looking at here?
I've got one I could probably throw in. Unless, do you have something offhand, or do you want me to chime in?
Well, yeah. So this is the next part about it, and this is something about opposing viewpoints that we need to speak about more in general, not just within Flat Earth and Round Earth. It's more of just like actually hearing out the other side, in the sense that especially I think we saw this a lot during like the presidential debates and everything. I'm independent in the sense that I don't know enough about politics to pick a side. So when asking people like, hey, like, why should I vote for a certain candidate? It was never about the candidate itself. It was always about why the other person sucks. So what I think this question will do here for us is not less away from the science, but more just about, I guess, like, what do you think is most often misunderstood on the other side of the debate? For example, for you, Mark, what is something that round earthers or people who argue with you, they don't understand what you're trying to say? Like maybe there's like some sort of disconnect in what the message you're preaching versus the message that they receive.
I like that question.
By the way, no, it's good. And by the way, for anyone that's listening to this, the how we can tell if you're not on the flat earth side is we don't use the word round, and it's not like a religious thing or anything like that, because but Brad will get it. Round applies to two-dimensional objects as well, and so we always say sphere or ball or globe. So when anyone ever says round, it's like, okay, well, they're not on our team, which is fine. I mean, so anyone that tries to pretend, it's one of the dead giveaways when if anyone ever tries to fake being, infiltrate us, they'll slip up and they'll start saying words like that. It's like, okay, because it clicks in your head, and once it happens, there's certain things you won't do. You won't say the word round anymore because you get a knee-jerk response in your head. And you'll also notice on television when you're watching shows, whatever it is, you'll notice globes are in frame constantly. For just about any show going back 30 years at least, and movies, they'll be in frame, and especially during television shows. And I get it. It's like, oh, fine, there's a globe in every classroom. No. Why is there a globe on top of that filing cabinet in that Chicago detective's office? Why is it always in that doctor's office? And again, why are they always in frame? But the only common misunderstanding we get from our side, and it was a misunderstanding that started a long time ago for whatever reason, is that there's a bunch of people that think that the whole flat earth community believes in that gravity is this upward acceleration of a asteroid flat earth that's going up through space. And I don't know where exactly that came from. Yeah, there's a small fringe of people that did it, and like Brad was saying with the media, who knows, maybe they just embellished it, kind of like when one of our guys wanted to do a flat earth cruise instead of a flat earth conference. And it's like, and all of a sudden one media guy says, oh, they're going to go to Antarctica, and then all the other media has propagated that. It's like, flat earthers are going to take a cruise to Antarctica. It's like, no, we're not. But they jumped on it. So the 9 meters per second upward acceleration of a disk, that was basically it. And I squashed it fairly quickly. I mean, it still lingers out there, but that's the only really big misunderstanding for us. Everything else is fine. One other thing, it's just a small one, which is that we're tied to the actual Flat Earth Society, which I didn't even know was a real thing when I first got into this. I applied for it. They're based out of Hong Kong, some British guy, I think. And I didn't know much about it. It's like, well, these guys will know. Here's my $30. Give me my membership card. I still have it. And I made a video on it, and I noticed that even though we're only like 500 people in this group, in this forum, the trolls were manning the velvet ropes out front. And so I made a video of saying, don't go to the Flat Earth Society. It's absolutely co-opted. And because guys, the trolls were basically saying, it's not serious, go away. They're not serious, go away. And it's like, who the hell are you guys? And why isn't anyone watching these guys? These guys are actually running the show for the most part, except for the president. And it ended up coming back to haunt me because I told people, don't go to the Flat Earth Society, and then it's leaked out. It's like, oh, well, Mark was in the Flat Earth Society, therefore he must be controlled opposition. I'm going, I was the guy that told you, and through the telephone game, it circled all the way back around to me. And so it's like, Mark, you shouldn't be in the Flat Earth Society. Going, do you wonder where that rumor came from in the first place? Whatever. So yeah, that's it. That's the only thing that I get misunderstood.
And how about, first off, I think my mic disconnected. Can it still?
Yeah, I can hear you better now. You were in the distant before, but now you're good.
All right, cool. All right, so now moving on to your side. So what do you think is something that, for example, like a flat earther might misunderstand, that when, you're saying, no, the earth is round because of this, like, what do you think is the disconnect there?
Mm-hmm. I want to answer this by analogy. So, and because Mark mentioned dark energy, dark matter, and that's actually a fantastic example. So something that we in science don't understand well yet. And dark energy is really out there. Dark matter, I'm starting to get a better sense of, and I had despite being trained in physics and some astronomy, I had my training was more in physics. I had some doubts about it. It's like, well, why are we leaning on dark matter? Why is it that we're going to invent a new thing to try to describe it when maybe we just need to change some old theories? And what I've learned over time is that this was a naive viewpoint on mine, because I'm not in the field. It does take, as we get into more and more complex technologies and understandings, it takes time and study. Your 10,000 hours argument, 20,000, 30,000, as you get further and further into something. And I finally read a book on the evidence behind dark matter, and I begin to see the full rich picture that goes with it. That says, it's like, okay, it's not just one piece of evidence. There's like 5, 6, 7 different things that can't be described in the way we understand how the universe is evolving and moving around, the way the galaxies rotate, the way gravitational lensing happens. There's a lot of self-consistent pictures that work, that really do describe. And then there's some things that are outside of that we're not sure. So why when a galaxy rotates, we're looking at this galaxy rotating around, and we see the outer edges of it rotating just as fast as the inner edges. And that shouldn't be true for an object like that. The outer edges should rotate more slowly. So that was one piece of evidence. And I thought, well, if that's the only thing, like maybe our model is just wrong here. But then there began to be, it's like, well, there's some evidence here and there's some evidence there. And you start to get this bigger picture and you realize, well, there's actually a common way to solve all of those problems. And they call that thing dark matter. We just haven't been able to see it yet. And this is not a first in science. There were in some early particle physics experiments back in the 1930s, back before we had defined what a proton, electrons, and neutrons were. Well, we knew protons and electrons. We didn't know neutrons existed. Some experiments were done where there was missing energy. And conservation of energy had never been disproven before. So there was a physicist who said, well, let's make up a new particle that we just can't see. And people thought he was crazy. And then experiments were able to be done to begin to probe that further. And they were able to find out, well, actually, no. It's like, that's a good idea. And here's the experimental evidence that verifies that. And now we've built this into the model that gives us predictive power to help push us forward. So that was where I didn't understand the evidence enough myself. And I had to begin to read into it. Now, I just thought, I realized that you picked that, I think you said in the documentary about like the poop book that you pulled off the shelf. It's like you didn't really want to do the flat earth and then realize it's like, no, actually I'm interested. I'm ready to look into that. And so you began to look at the evidence there to see what that picture was. And I guess here's what folks who believe the flat earth idea, I guess I would challenge folks to, if they really want to get to the bottom of it, it's like there's deeper and deeper layers of evidence. There's deeper and deeper study. There's beginning to study the ways of knowing that mathematics and physics and astronomy are able to offer. That just on the surface, what the information that's given, like you do have to take it on face value. I have to take most of biology on face value. I'm not a biologist, so I have to take most of, you mentioned that the zooplankton, or I don't remember the example, but I would not be a scientist in the room that said that couldn't have existed because I don't know a thing about it. So I do have to trust that people are telling me the right information there. But if I'm passionate about it and I really want to know, it's like, well, now I need to devote my time. I need to go into study. I need to go into deep study about that. And we got a short lifetime. There's only so much that we can do. So nobody can be experts on many, many, many things. So I have to say I value the way that you approach this. You have a very respectful approach. You're a very kind person. You're pointing at the evidence that you see, and you're challenging people to look at it. And I think our similarity is I come at it from the same point of view, and we need more people who don't just like blow up and get crazy, and can have respectful conversations to try to find how much closer can they get to each other, with the fact that maybe they're not going to overlap, and maybe that's going to be okay too, and that different ideas can be out there. And what are they providing for our world? Are we making the world a better place by having differing viewpoints that we could then share ideas and expand our own knowledge? That would be actually what I'd be most interested in, not in trying to convince you of one thing, and you trying to convince me of one thing. But are these conversations making the world a better place to live in?
I gotta tell you, I like everything about you. I should be doing stuff like this all the time with people like you. But as you know, when a worldview hits hard enough, there's a big group of people that go into the 5 stages of acceptance, and those first 2 stages are not fun. Denial followed immediately by anger, and when those are coupled, when you're bleeding between the two of them, it gets ugly fast. I've run into scientists that'll say, this is lowering the tone of the room for me even talking to you, right? Or the people that say, I won't even talk to you on camera because it's beneath me. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I want to chime in here really quick, because there was a middle ground I wanted to ask you, because I'm honestly curious about what your opinion is on this, because when I got into the whole flat earth thing, it was kind of a side road from what I really liked, which was simulation theory. And because I started in the video game sector, I played video games for a living, and I saw where we were headed, and I saw what we were aspiring to be, and I was stunned that people watched The Matrix back in '99. Can't believe it's that old, and didn't get it. Right? They're dodging bullets. Wow, it's so cool. It's like, do you understand the broader picture here of reality within reality?
Time, I think.
The what?
I only feel like it's one of the best movies of all time.
Oh yeah, no,
it's your
it's
brain to think about.
Absolutely wonderful. The sequel's fine. I mean, it was going to make money, but the original, the concept was absolutely stunning. And the 13th Floor, which was also amazing, which was based on a 1975 German movie called World in a Wire. We've been talking about simulations for a long time. What blew and so when I got into this, I was initially talking to people about simulation theory, and it just wasn't resonating. To where all of a sudden people ask me, well, what's the shape of the simulation? I go, well, yeah, it's kind of, it's everything's boxed off, or there's an illusion of a dome, and the ground, it's got hills and valleys stuff, but it's flat. The both ends lined up. They go, so we're talking about a flat Earth? I go, yeah, and they lost their minds. It's like that's what resonated. I go, so let me get this straight. You boiled down my simulation theory to flat Earth. That's what you're gonna run with, and that's what they did. And it's like, okay, I mean, it's fair. Technically, all simulations are flat. If you know anything about the game world or simulation world, we don't build in curves because why would you? No one's going to notice the difference anyway. We don't care how big the world is. Everything is absolutely tabletop flat. The edges line up, and there is no dome sky. It's called the skybox system, and you can simulate anything you want up there. What got me, real quick, is the double slit experiment, which you are more than aware of, and I am a huge fan of.
Favorite.
Oh, mine too. That's probably I already knew by what you were talking. Double slit experiment validated for me immediately the question, and I know I'm older than you, which is when we were asked in grade school, it's like if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. We had no idea what the hell they were talking about. When they asked that question. When I got into the gaming world, I absolutely knew the answer to that question. I go, no, it doesn't make a sound. There's no tree. You're not there. Why would we draw the freaking tree? That's a waste of resources. In fact, why do we draw the other side of the mountain or wherever the player's not going to go? And when the double slit experiment came into play, and I challenge scientists, and I'm not making fun of you in any way, because I've thrown at scientists. I go, explain the double slit experiment without using the word magic or the term I don't know. Because that's what it comes down to, which is, it's the old thing. It's like when you're making a funny face to your friend and you turn around and you're straight faced, right? That's what the double slit experiment is. Yeah, but it shouldn't apply to the whole world. The question is, because we build the double slit experiment concept into games, all games. The question is, why is it happening here? And if it's happening here, it doesn't take much of a leap to go from, okay, are we a game within a game? Are we making a game within a game? And I was just wondering your take on that.
Well, if I may interject so we can keep the questions going. I think your point actually really opens up the next question, which I was going to ask you too, is, and I'll start with you this time, Professor. So why do you think some people distrust mainstream science or institutions in general? Because that is the stem of like most conspiracies, in the sense that like we do not trust what society is trying to get us to know. So I just want your perspective as someone who is more of on the side of the general consensus, as why do you think people even distrust certain things in the first place? And I think there we'll find a more common ground in reasoning in general.
Well, first to address, I'm not going to answer Mark's question, but I am going to say I would be happy to talk with you off camera at some other time. You hit on one of my favorite topics.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And I would love to hear your ideas, and I'd love to share my ideas, because I'm much broader minded than I know many people in the science community are. So yeah, we can talk later. But
yeah, set up the contact info. Send me Brad's contact info when this is over.
I got this.
Yeah. Or give him mine, because he's busy. Go ahead.
But I mean, we need a psychologist in the room for this. Why do we distrust anybody? I
like to consider myself a psychologist sometimes.
Why do we distrust mainstream science?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, like, I can't say I trust the government. There's so many there, because there's So okay.
Well, I believe
my wife is Russian.
Right.
And Russians, her whole family it's conspiracy theories everywhere. I can't, I thought they were all going to kill us when we vaccinated our son. And like there's just so many pictures there. I can't have a conversation with her family without it, without them raising their voices and yelling at each other. And we don't have control over our lives, I think, the way everybody would like to. And so it's easy just to point fingers. It's my spouse's fault. It's my parents' fault for raising me the wrong way. It's the government's fault. Scientists are telling me the wrong thing. So we all want to point fingers at everybody else and not take responsibility for things. And I think that general wish to blame others causes us to start distrusting. And I can't say I understand why different people distrust different things. So Mark, I'd be interested in hearing if there's something in particular, there's some reason why people who believe in the flat Earth idea would want to distrust the mainstream idea. That I don't understand. I don't understand the motives behind certain levels of distrust. And I don't have a distrust in most scientists. I don't trust them. If you tell me there's a government research lab doing science and they're coming up with alternative evidence about vaccines, then the broader community, then I start to say, it's like, well, wait a minute. Now we're getting these differing viewpoints, and there's one group that might have a motive for having different data than another group. Then I begin to start to get twisted up, and now I have questions. And I am not educated enough in the field of vaccines, for instance, to be able to weigh in truly on that. And I would have to say that, well, I need to go into that science. If I want to make an impact and really have a voice in that, I need to be the one in the room doing the science, asking the questions, and going further into it. But yeah, people seem to have this distrust, and I don't always understand it, particularly for things that, and something like with the flat Earth. I think, well, to me, it feels like there's so much evidence that points to something else. What is the value in a different viewpoint? What is that providing for people who feel that? And does and that's where I would want to have a better understanding so that maybe I'm not coming, and maybe other scientists are not coming at it from a combative aspect viewpoint, but really a more listening viewpoint. I don't feel like I phrased things as well there, because I don't have as good of an answer at all.
No, there's no clear-cut answer anyway. The one I have is kind of cobbled together, which is, it's not all science's fault. I can give credit where credit is due. Every aspect of our life, there are conspiracies, because people, as you know, I think it's negative reinforcement bias, whereas you can read all sorts of fun, positive, hey, you're great, you're fabulous, and all of a sudden, you suck, I hate you, and then you will dwell on that. Doesn't matter how many other great comments, you will dwell on that. What's the old saying, a bad apple spoils the bunch. We know there are conspiracies in just about every aspect of our life in one form or another, whether it's business or politics or sports or entertainment. I mean, I could spend a day on any of those four. And then, yes, even science and journalism. No offense with journalism, I'll just mention Citizen Kane. If you never watched it, you understand. It's like, it didn't take a genius for someone to figure out, hey, I'm really rich. I don't like what that newspaper is saying about me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy the newspaper. Multiply that by everything that's out there, because once you control the media, you control people. But when it comes to science, usually it's, again, I will give them a pass on stuff they didn't know about, because science is always evolving. Right? So when we did, lead paint was a great idea until it wasn't. Lead gasoline was a great idea. DDT and all the variations of DDT, until we almost wiped out our national bird. But we didn't know at the time. Asbestos, I actually like it as a product, an amazing product, unless you work in the factory. Not so amazing. At that point, it took us years and years to figure that out in lawsuits. The lawyers' rules apply. Unfortunately, when the law gets involved, The mixture of lawyers and science is one of the worst things ever, because the lawyer's rule has never changed, which is you deny until they absolutely have you, and even then you plea bargain, right? And then you sign an NDA, and then nobody knows what the hell happened. There was a settlement out of court, but somebody was wrong. The big tobacco, I have to bring it up. It's not a shot at you or science, but when this is not being clever, but scientists need Porsches too, and you will find guys that will, come on, man is fallible, men will take the money, and it's like, look, if it's not you, it's got to be somebody else, so take the money and say that cigarettes are absolutely fine. It's like, okay, puff puff, and away we go. And what they didn't know, and what they probably should have known, there was 1 out of 5 people were going to smoke anyway. So you could have saved yourself the trouble, just admit it. It's like, no, you have 20% of the population, just run with that. So unfortunately, because of all those things, it carries over. Why wouldn't it carry over into your fields, astronomy and astrophysics and stuff like that? It's going to, because the conspiracy people already have so much fuel. It's the mob mentality, right? It's just this wave. It's like, you think you're gonna get out of it. It's like, just walk right. Oh no, they're good. Just move on. No, you're gonna be into it too. And once. Again, I got to pick on NASA. I'm not picking on you. I'm not going to pick on astrophysics or astronomy because, I don't know the fields that well. But NASA's production shortcomings have been abysmal. Considering they're paid, I don't know, what is it, $70 million a day to do what they do. Considering they haven't been back to the moon, no one's even. In fact, it's it kills me. The Artemis thing. Our groups just laugh about it now. We're just like, so it's not that NASA didn't go back. It's nobody else even tried. And there's 5 launch capability, supposedly, countries in the world right now. Japan and Europe and China and Russia and us. And I'm sorry, India. And nobody's even tried. So what happened? Last thing I want to throw on this, which is there's a wonderful, I just discovered it last year on Apple TV. There was can't believe they made it, a wonderful fictional show called For All Mankind. And I know it was meant to be for the science community, which was what happened if the space race just kept going, right? Remember, Americans got there and then the Russians just quit for whatever reason, first time in sports history. It's like, oh yeah, Americans get there, the Russians. I mean, have you known the Russians to quit on anything except for the Soviet Union? That's a whole nother story. But For All Mankind, it covers the space race, which I told people, I go, what would have happened? I said this for years. I swear to God, they stole the show from me, which was, it's like, we would have put a small base, they would have been a bigger base, bigger, more people, and then eventually Time Magazine has the Cold War reach the moon. That's what would have happened, and that's what the show is about. Which is, this constant, and it furthered science because the competition never ended. Competition is so great for stuff like that. And it never ever happened. It was the exact opposite. The Americans went, and it's like, well, that's it, we're done. Bye everybody. And in 1972, they wouldn't even try it. So yes, the conspiracy world doesn't trust mainstream science because mainstream anything has been corrupted to such a degree. Science probably least of all, but it doesn't matter because you can't tell who's been compromised. And then you got you guys like Michio and Brian and Neil just towing the line, and Bill Nye, who, by the way, love the fact that he's on every panel from the Mars rover to quantum mechanics to the ozone layer. Why? He was a comedian, but then again, Zelensky was a comedian too. Anyway, sorry. What else you got?
All right, so this is actually funny enough. I have soccer practice, so I will be switching the moderator role over to Mariah. But I feel like soccer in itself is kind of a common ground. I'm kicking something that's round on a flat surface, so
I see what you did there.
We can see eye to eye there.
Well done.
But, yeah, I'll be handing over the mic to Mariah. But this is where I leave. But Mark, I'll shake your hand virtually.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
We have all come to the common understanding that we don't like this Brian guy. So that's good.
I know, I hate Brian. Brian's horrible.
All right, well, we'll try to do a smooth transition into the next. You guys have had no problem really finding common ground between each other, even though you come from opposing sides. So with that being said, is there anything from the other person's perspective that you find interesting or worth mentioning / talking about? And we could start with Mark Sargent over there.
Something on Brian's side, which is interesting. Yeah, no, I want to talk to Brian after this about virtual reality and the double slit experiment.
Oh, I'm Brad. I thought we were referring to Brian Cox as not liking him.
Oh, no. Did you mean to say Brian or did you mean to say Brad?
No, Brian. I think Brad's a great guy.
Okay.
No, Brad's a great guy. No, Brian Cox, I don't care. Brian
Cox,
Cox, he's British. He's got that built-in arrogance. It's never going away. It is. I mean, he can talk. He talks a good game, but he's freaking British. I mean, there's a reason why 90% of the best villains in Hollywood are British. It's not just a cliche. No, I want to talk to Brad about the. Did I say Brian? No.
You said Brian, yeah.
Oh, I did say Brian?
Yeah,
oh,
so
my mistake.
Anyway.
No, I want to talk about virtual reality off camera because I love the concept. I love any of the concepts where science has kind of stumbled into it. You know, like when they stumbled into the Milgram experiment. You know, the electroshock until you die experiment where, yeah, that whole thing where even the scientists like, well, they're only going to kill like maybe 3%, 4% of the people. It's like, they killed 60%. And then when there was another person in the room, it bumped up to 90. You know, and science, and they embraced that one. It's like, wow, we had no idea it was that bad. Or the Ash experiment, which has been done many, many times, which is the peer pressure experiments. You know, put 5 people in an elevator that are actors. You put it, and then you have them facing the wrong way in the elevator, and the 6th person comes in, it's not an actor, and he will turn because it's like, well, these guys know something, or, you know, which line is the longest line. And if you may not have heard this one. Have you ever heard of the neuroscience and free will? Have you heard of that one? Oh, that one's great. Almost as good as the 100th monkey effect, in my opinion. 100th monkey effect, by the way, which is also, I think, another simulation thing, which if you've never heard about that one, which is, you know, we started experimenting, you know, with some of the monkeys. We weren't dissecting them or anything. The monkeys off of Japan, right? And we were throwing potatoes down, and they were washing them off in the sand and then eating them because eating a potato with sand is awful, right? And then they realized after, it's not a myth. It's like, even though science backpedaled from this because they know what it kind of means, which is once the 100th monkey in that particular chain of islands figured out how to wash the water off the potato, they all did. It was like this massive beneficial update. Even the monkeys on the islands they hadn't even gotten to yet. It's like, how did all the monkeys know? Which is it's a software thing. For me, it was like, oh yeah, beneficial update, instant patch, no harm done there. It's like all monkeys should know how to eat potatoes. Okay, let's do that. The neuroscience versus free will. If you've never heard of it, it started out as a really low rent thing where it attached electrodes to the person's head, as one does, and you have them sit in front of a computer, and you have them hit a number between 1 and 9, right, on the computer. And there's a timer, and they say, just in case you make the decision and there's a delay between the time you think about the number and the time you may have heard about this, and the time you press the number, let us know, because, you know, we're going to be tracking this. And what they found was the computer could tell, not, you know, who knows what they could tell now, because the experiment's at least 20 years old, where they couldn't tell what number you picked because the software wasn't good enough. They could tell that your brain had committed to picking the number, to hitting the key 8 seconds ago. 8 seconds before that moment. You're thinking, what do you mean? I mean, before the question was even asked. So, you know, they said, because they random, it's like pick a number between 1 and 5, pick a number between 1 and 9, and so on and so on. And so, and science absolutely backed away from that one because they said, well, that's predestination, and that can't be true, which means it's not only, this goes into a whole nother level, which I'm sorry, I ramble, but I gotta get this one point out, is not only could it might not just be a simulation, it may not even be real time. It may be a pre-record, which is all you need is some sort of memory block, and you could set this whole thing up who would know the difference? And if you think that may be a stretch, oh really? Then you know the answer to this, which is you probably watched or stumbled across a kid who was playing video games on YouTube and recorded his game, and you could play it, right? Or you could watch it, right? The brain doesn't know much difference, and you're getting almost the exact same experience from watching that kid's YouTube video of playing the game. Your brain can't determine the difference between a live stream and a pre-record, but they're very, very different things. One is this tiny little MP4 file. The other involves servers and all this sort of stuff. So when science stumbled across the neuroscience and free will experiments, like, holy smokes, that's a whole nother thing.
So I have a question for you. So this was a question I was going to ask you about, I guess about yourself, but also about your impression of people who believe in the flat Earth idea. And from what you've talked about, I feel like I have, and I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like I'm starting to actually gain a little sense of why you might be interested in, or why you're compelled to doubt a spherical Earth, a round Earth. And it's you have a very deep interest in basically consciousness, how the world emerges from inside us, from outside us, in our minds. What is that bigger picture? And in that scheme, science, and this is why I want to talk to you further, because I'd love to share ideas. But this is where I feel like science actually isn't going to have the final answer right now, because the ideas that we have for describing the universe, assuming things are round balls that are orbiting each other, in a couple hundred years, that those theories, those laws could be overthrown, because science is always changing. There may be new laws and models that come along that replace those, and we don't even know what they look like. It may have nothing to do with round balls or flat. It's like round and flat may just be thrown out and say, that's not actually the right category. Zagoink is now the right category. It's not to make up a word, because I don't know what the new category is going to be. Right. It's going to be a different way of describing things. The quantum world had no idea that quantum theory was going to come along. Physicists had thought everything was figured out at the end of the 1800s, and they said, well, there's this ultraviolet catastrophe that we have to sort out. But once we got that, we got it all. It turned out the solution to the ultraviolet catastrophe ended up predicting Planck's constant, and the quantum world just unraveled from there. Right. And completely new model. So there's a curiosity that you have to really question these things. But I feel like a lot of angry people out there don't have curiosity. I feel like here's this viewpoint and it goes against the establishment, and I am going to jump on that viewpoint. So I'm interested in knowing what is your sense of the flat Earth community? Where are people? Are there different camps? Are there different reasons that people are interested in going against which is a bigger viewpoint, which from my perspective feels like a viewpoint that it's not like overturning the DDT molecule and saving our bird. It's like, this is a bigger, to me it feels like a bigger thing with hundreds of years of theoretical models behind it, and space probes going up into space. So there's this big thing, and it baffles me a little bit more, and I'm interested from a person perspective. What have you seen
in our community?
6:20.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to keep going, by all means.
Okay.
Okay.
We just have one more question after. So, Mark, if you want to give your thoughts to the question he just asked.
I can do this in just a couple minutes. This.
Okay. Perfect.
My take on it is this: in our community, there's only a couple different camps. There's some fringe camps. There's hardcore. There's casual. There's people that just want to drink and play ping pong. Those type of people. But there's also the there's 70% believe there's a dome, but probably 30%, not kidding, don't believe there's a dome. But I think those people don't like to be hemmed in. It's like, man, don't constrict me, man. You're being all Captain Bring Down. Those type of people. There's like infinite plane, no dome. It's like, okay, what about gravity versus vacuum of space? That whole thing, you're gonna have to deal with it. But if it's a simulation, who cares? You can make up the rules as you go along. The other part, though, which I have to bring up, which is there is a religious side. At least half of our community is tied to one of the major religious houses. And they go into it from a biblical standpoint, which was, and we've had people that have broken down the Bible and come back to me and say, oh no, it's a flat earth book, except for one verse. And there are pastors that'll hold on to that verse like it's got veto power over everything because they don't know what the congregation is going to do. They're afraid of the backlash. But the rest of them, they're all over it, which is if it was built, right? If it was, throw the model up the only time probably during this thing. If this thing was built, kind of like this, right? Then it was built by someone. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the divine, but really you're kind of splitting hairs. Either it's an advanced civilization that's way bolder and way more powerful than ourselves, and there's plenty to choose from there, or it's some sort of divine being, but really one man's advanced tech is another man's deity. So those are the camps, which is, are there a lot of people like me that are open to like questioning, the whole, it's like, where is the fourth wall? Where is, can this thing crack open like a walnut? Possibly. I mean, that's my ultimate goal is to try to figure out what the reset code is for this place. But yeah, it's the curiosity that drives me. I've always been fascinated with it, going all the way back to my tech days. That's it.
All right. Well, I got one more question for each of you. So you guys have had a really great, productive conversation so far. I've been very eyes peeled and keeping close attention.
That's one of the best conversations I've ever had with someone from the other side. Not kidding you.
You guys riff well with each other is one way you could say it. But after hearing each other's viewpoints, and we've kept this very civil, has anything about your perspective shifted or become maybe a little clearer? And we could start off with Dr. Moser.
It's interesting. I used AI a little bit before I got here because since I didn't know who Mark was or what to expect from this conversation, and I hadn't really looked into flat Earth ideas myself at all. I just haven't looked into it. So, I started watching the documentary a little bit. I started looking around. I asked AI, what should I expect from a conversation with Mark? And, I actually got a good sense of, I think I'm going to enjoy talking with this individual. AI and the internet, therefore, have great things to say about, how respectful you are and
that's nice.
How polite and kind and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to, sit in the room with a raving lunatic, which there's plenty of them on both sides. Some of the people we talked about in physics feel like, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he might be a little bit of a raving lunatic, like he's just in your face, and I don't know if that's the best way to do it. So I have appreciated the opportunity to start to hear some of the arguments from people who believe in the flat Earth idea, and realize there are, without thinking about it, I may have the assumption these are unreasonable people, and yet here I am sitting and talking to a very reasonable person who I think we share a lot of common interests, actually, the questions that we have. And there's a diverging point here, and there may be converging points in other places. And it just reminds me that, and this is what I think all people really need to keep remembering. It's like we're all just people. We're all just trying to figure this out, this crazy world, how to be alive here, how to have, productive lives, happy lives. And, when we pause and sit down and we listen to each other, there's interesting conversations to be had, interesting viewpoints to listen to. And, and something like this is mild. It's like we don't have to come to a common conclusion. There's no war at stake over it, at least not as far as I know of. But there are other things where there are wars at stake over them. And those are the ones that make me nervous when you have the unreasonable people yelling at each other and pressing their finger on the red, proverbial red button. So if we can get those people with fingers on red buttons to also begin to have these conversations with each other and to listen to each other, I feel like the Dalai Lama is a great example, and bringing, trying to bring religion and science, getting people to listen to each other together. Kind of looking for where's the Christian Dalai Lama to come up and say, let's have science and Christianity talk to each other. and see what are our common grounds, what are different places, why are they different, what are the reasons for those being different, and is it okay for them to be different because we're trying to do different things. And so I really appreciated this conversation for what I've learned, and getting a chance to view the other arguments that I hadn't bothered with beforehand.
Beautifully said. Over to you, Mark.
This is I've been doing this now for 11 years. And I've talked to some nice people and some great scientists over the years. But I can honestly say I have never had an easier time. And, just with the back and forth, it almost felt like we were at an airport. You're sitting in one of those chairs and I'm sitting over here and our flight was delayed. It's like, hey, what do you do? Well, what do you do? And there's nobody else around us. And we're just talking. Mm-hmm. And no, it was great. It's nice to know that I didn't sense any anger, any resentment, any sort of, hostility. And why would you? That's what science should be. Science should be like, hey, you know what? I'm not so, so cemented in whatever I have that I'm at least willing to listen. Initially I thought, I know it's hot where you are, and who knows, you might be borderline having a stroke, but I don't think that's it. I think you're probably
heat lamps are not too much.
Yeah, it's like it might be 100 degrees there, but I don't think that's it. I think you're just a genuinely nice, open guy, and whatever students have you, they're lucky to have you, because I've run into a bunch that I'd be like, yep, they're just going to learn the party line. So it's great. It's good stuff.
So it's disappointing to hear me say that you have had very few conversations with people in this open way. And, this is what has to change in the science perspective. And I think that's, maybe what has to change with some people in the flat earth perspective who get out there and are, I didn't watch the whole documentary yet, but there were a couple of people that I saw talking in other parts that I'm like, I don't know if I want to have a conversation with that person, actually. I'm easier than most. And thank you, by the way, for looking me up. I've never actually looked myself up on AI. I'm kind of scared to know what the hell it says. But depends how you phrase the question, I think.
Yes, I suppose too. What's that SOB Mark Sargent up to? Yeah. It's great. Thank you very much. Thank you for the students for putting this together, or whoever was responsible for all this stuff. I would love a recording of this if you ever got a chance. I'd love to save it and share it with some of my people, because look, you don't have to go in guns blazing. So I'd love for some other people to, if you ever have the time, somebody better than others, and you always ask, like, hey, what would it be like to talk to this person? Because I'd probably want to set expectations first, because I usually go in with no expectations whatsoever. So in this case, and this, by the way, was wonderful, because both of us I didn't know who you were, you didn't know who I was. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I honestly, I didn't even know when I was picking it up. So I said, oh, right, I'm talking to a professor. I honestly, until you sat down, it's like, right, I'm talking to this guy. So no, it was well, because I don't know. I mean, half the time, I'm talking with a class and the professor's just in the background. Kids, ask your questions. I'm going for a smoke.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, and I really appreciate the what this class is trying to do. I know the professor for the course, and she is a wonderful person who's a really deep thinker, and really wants to make a difference with helping students to be able to think about how to bridge these guys. It's that like the main point of the course, to being able to think about that. I mean, that is a fantastic course to be out there. And so I'm happy to be part of it. So
love the fact that they started with flat earth versus globe, and then you're going to go in Republican Democrat. Wow, it's a bad time. Bad time to go into that, because that's going to be, I don't know who you're choosing for that, but that could be a nightmare. That's just going to be political rhetoric just being slung. No one's going to listen to
anybody.
That's
another group doing that, not you guys.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's all us. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Good luck with that one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, this has been one of the most, civil, not even arguments, I can't even say that, understandings of each other that we have been able to witness. But as we come down to an end, I just want to thank both of you very much for popping out on this episode of our first ever episode of Sudden Understanding. So yeah, we're going to be posting this on public. So Mark, you can feel free to show it to all your friends. We love the viewership and everything too. Okay. And so, you talked a little bit about our next episode, Republican versus Democrat. So that'll be definitely a powerful discussion that we'll be able to start up and everything.
If you get a chance, sorry, last thing for you. If you get a chance, this is an old Simpsons reference, which was they had a fake news show called Smartline, and they said, and tomorrow night, don't miss it, tomorrow on Smartline, which is the one true religion? Like, oh God. And of course they never did it, but you might as well do one of those while you're at it. I don't know if you bothered going into the religious
I think we
aspect.
just got our closing statement. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you, and I hope you feel the same talking to Dr. Moser, who's had very great thoughts and been able to, jump back and forth with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, pleasure talking with you. We'll have to do, if we ever get the opportunity, we'll have to do interviews on tour. You and I just sitting in front of a panel.
There we go.
And the producers would be like, why aren't they fighting?